Hello everybody and welcome to Open Line. I am your host D'Destin Kaufmann, and with Halloween right around the corner, we couldn't really have better timing for a paranormal activity show, and so we have assembled the best in our area to go through Paranormal Michigan. I'd like to introduce our guest. Sitting first to my right is Mike Lopez. He is with Paranormal Investigations of Michigan. To his right, we have Samantha Harris. She is author and demonologist, so thank you for being here. To her right, we have Chris Hildenbrand. He is the founder and lead investigator of Lansing Paranormal. To his right is Beth Shelby. She is a psychic intuitive. And finally, we have Kara Swanson. She is the West Chapter Director of Grimstone Incorporated.
Good to be here.
Thank you all very much. I guess we'll start by just maybe introducing yourself and talk a little bit about, what got you into this field and why it's a passion for you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I guess I'm first.
All right, yep.
Well, my name is Mike, and I'm with Paranormal Investigations of Michigan. I'm the technology manager for them, so I handle all the toys, so to speak, and equipment. I'm also the guy who usually sits behind the camera work and watches the stuff being recorded as it's going. I've always had an interest in paranormal and paranormal investigations. I've had experiences in the past when I was young, and up to now I've had experiences, and I've just always been curious about it. My point of view, though, is I always like to have facts or details, trying to get it on film or, getting an audio recording or something like that. Because it's hard to tell somebody that's a non-believer that has an issue with it. Right. But it's great to have that evidence to say, hey, the proof's in the pudding.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Sam.
Yep, well, you already covered the name, but my name's Samantha, and I run the Michigan Paranormal Research Association, and it's kind of actually dwindled down to just a few people, or sometimes a one-person show, where I actually go to people's houses and perform house blessings and actually get rid of the hauntings. Because a lot of times people are kind of like, look, I know there's a haunting, I just want it gone. And that was kind of the next step I really took in paranormal research, was like, what can I do for these people? We can prove it's here, like, what's the next step? Right. And a lot of time people just want to get rid of it, and so that's probably the biggest motivation for me, is really just helping people. I think it's very rewarding. We had people that are sleeping in the living room. They can't even sleep in their own bedrooms anymore because they're just so terrified with the severe cases that I work on. And so it's really nice to be able to give that gift and help other people to reclaim their lives back. And I probably started researching when I was about 11 years old. So it's been about 14 years of research. And what really started is I captured an image while I was at a summer camp of an apparition of a woman, and took a professional, explain all that other stuff. And I've had death premonitions and kind of psychic experiences ever since I was a little girl. So it just kind of evolved from that, and it's kind of like that line of work has kind of chosen me, so I've just kind of followed with it.
Very cool. Yeah, very cool. All right, Chris.
I founded Lansing Paranormal, I think 5 years ago. I've been interested in this since I was about 10 years old, actually when Ghostbusters came out. Okay. And then I started doing reading and realized, oh, this is real. So I've been studying it since then. I had some experiences when I was younger. What we do, we're mainly interested in helping people. We don't ever solicit cases. We don't go any place and ask to investigate. We just let people find us. Okay. We just want to help people, help them understand what's going on. We take a fairly scientific approach to try to recreate what they're telling us is happening. Usually there's a normal explanation for everything they have going on. If not, we'll try to help them understand what might be there. Right.
Very cool. Okay, Beth.
Hello. I'm a psychic intuitive. I have been this way my whole life. Wasn't sure what it was when I was growing up, but I did grow up in an extremely haunted house. And my mother met a psychic who came in and cleaned the house, but she kind of took me under her wing and guided me and taught me how to use my gifts. And I use my gifts now to help others. I do readings. I consult with a paranormal group in Michigan, the Parahaunt, on their cases. They'll send me their interviews, and I'll give them all my impressions, what I feel the problem is, what they're going to be up against, so to speak. Right. I also teach classes in psychic development, and right now I'm working on offering haunted walking tours of the city of Howell, where I live. So, just pretty busy.
Yeah, I guess so. All right, Kara, last, certainly not least.
Yes.
Dig in.
I'm with Grimstone Inc. We've been around since 1999. We also take a scientific approach to it. I've always been fascinated with the paranormal, but honestly, I didn't know if I was going to be terrified and run away from the scene, or if I was going to, you know, be tough. So I went on a public hunt at Beth, Michigan for the Basco bombing site, and just found that I just loved it. The adrenaline kicked in. I wasn't scared. I was so interested in it. And so after that, I decided I was going to look for a group that fit my style and went with Grimstone. Been there for about 5 years now.
Okay. And they're just hunters, or do they also do like cleansings and?
We are scientifically based, so we do client requests and do investigative. We investigate houses and businesses sometimes. Try to figure out natural solutions, just like Chris, but
right.
Yeah, just investigative.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll start with, because a lot of you, the common theme I have heard is that you had an experience, or there was a moment that you knew something was different, or that you had extra capabilities, and forgive me if my terminology is not correct, but you are experiencing things that most people either don't talk about or don't have. So do you find that that is the common thread, or do you find that some people have it later in life? Is it something that starts as a child? I mean, most of you kind of said that it was something that happened, you know, back when you were little. Anybody want to jump in and talk about what the experience was, or how you knew that maybe there was something going on there?
Well, I personally did not have anything growing up. I actually had my first paranormal thing that I'll actually call a paranormal event probably 2 years ago at Mansfield Prison. To this day, I can't quite wrap my head around it. But we were in Mansfield Prison, which is in Ohio, and we were in a place called the X Corridor, which is in the warden's spot. And my boyfriend was there along with other Grimstone members. And there's a spot where it goes into 4 rooms, and I turn and I see my boyfriend go into one room. So I follow him and like, oh, this is nice. And I get in there and nobody's there. So I'm just like, maybe I saw something. But then our director came in, Chris, and was like, where's, you know, your boyfriend? And I was like, he's not here. He's like, yes, he is. I saw him go in there. And, you know, my boyfriend's very much alive. So that was the first thing. And after that, we slept at the jail the whole night. We had an air mattress. We kept feeling our air mattress get kicked. Nobody was there. So that was interesting.
Right, little things like that. Obviously, there are lots of skeptics. You know, I mean, as with anything, the proof's in the pudding. The proof is the film. You know, show me what it is. We get a lot, you know, you hear about the orbs or things that you see in pictures. And then, of course, online it's explained as, oh, that's just dust in the room that the flash is reacting to. What are some of the ways that, and maybe this is more a question geared towards you, what are some of the ways that you can precisely describe how an orb is an orb versus just dust in the room?
That's a really tough question to answer.
Well, good. That makes it fun.
A lot of times, especially if you're filming and you're in the room, you can dust particles when you take like a flash or whatever. There'll be like many of them. You know, orbs, they don't always. There's not always like a whole bunch of grouping, and it's just like maybe a few. Usually, it's defined. It's a circular type of thing, but dust can kind of be like that too. With orbs in particular, though, you'll notice that it will actually have some kind of pattern to it. Like it'll move around in the room in a certain pattern, whereas dust will just kind of float down to the ground or float up or float one direction, depending if there's like air conditioning on or something like that.
Right.
But with an orb, you'll actually see it. You know, you can actually follow it around the room, like it's like Tinkerbell, basically. It's around the room.
It's got like an intelligence to it, you know.
Exactly.
And sometimes, the way it emits light, in my opinion, because I actually also work in videography and photography as well. But I've noticed that sometimes the light, the way it emits, is a little bit different too. It seems to emit its own source. It's not a reflection, rather, but it has an intelligence to it where it might avoid someone and then go into a wall or something. And we've caught a couple orbs like that as well too, where it just seems to have an intelligence to it, and it interacts sometimes. Not always. That's, you know, you're really lucky if that happens, I guess. But there's just a different behavior to it, I guess. Also with appearance, and like you said, there's, you know, a bunch of particles, and that's usually dust and stuff. Whereas an orb, you know, sometimes it's bigger. You know, interacts with people, shoots across the room, just different speeds. You know, it's
or
just
I mean, another example is if you're taking like still photos and stuff, you'll have it sitting on a chair next to you while you're having a conversation there with somebody, and it won't move. It'll just sit there floating.
Right. Now, this is something that's caught with a flash, or you can actually get it. Do you just like do a rapid fire photography to catch it?
It can be just different ways. You can do a flash, rapid fire. If you have IR cameras, you can use it with IR cameras and capture it.
Okay.
And sometimes, I mean, sometimes you won't even see it. A lot of times you won't know about it until you look at the evidence later when you review it and everything. So you won't even know it's happened. Same thing happens like with audio. I mean, you'll have conversations going on, and, you'll be talking to somebody in the room, and then there's someone else in the background talking that you didn't even know was there, but there isn't anybody else there. So, they like to do that to you, where you just don't know it's happening, and you go home and you're like, okay, nothing happened. And then you start looking through the evidence, and you're like, wow, I got this picture of an orb sitting next to me,
Right, so things are happening and you don't even know it.
Yeah.
I would like to remind our viewers that this is a call-in show. If you would like to be a part of the show, or you have a question for our great panel, you can do so. You can call us at 517-349-1232. We also have a Twitter hookup, and that's at HOM-TV, HOM-TV, which is probably on your screen. So please call in if you have questions or comments. We'd love to hear from you. You had said that there's a certain amount of intelligence, or some sort of an intelligence. If that is the case, do any of you have a knowledge or an understanding of what specifically that intelligence is? In other words, does that intelligence know what it is, or is it more just like, like a bug or something who doesn't? It's just going through the motions.
I think everyone agrees with me on this one, and I'm sure people with shows that are on TV and stuff like this, they've heard this before. There's classifications of hauntings, and there's residual hauntings, which is something that just repeats itself in time, where it's just the same thing over and over again. You might get the same door open and close at the same hour or something like that.
Right.
And then there's intelligent hauntings, and that's usually something spiritual. That's usually someone that has passed on. Majority of the time, they're trying to communicate something to you. Either they're trying to let you know that you remodeled the house, they're not happy about it, or they want to pass something on to a family member, or they just want to let you know, hey, I'm still here.
Right.
Those are usually the most common type of hauntings that we usually experience. And then there's other type of hauntings, which is in your field of expertise, is the
nasty stuff.
The nasty stuff, yeah, where
different types of intelligence.
They're aggressive. They're there, but they want to cause havoc. And those are, I wouldn't say rare, but they don't happen as often.
Right.
Most of the time, it's just a friendly Casper the Friendly Ghost. He just wants to let people know that he's there.
Interesting. Maybe, and again, anybody who's interested, maybe go through the difference in a ghost versus a demon versus a spirit, or versus just a knock on the wall, or as you said, a kick on the mattress, or whatever. Do you find those things out as you go? When you walk into a place where somebody says, hey, I've got something happening here that's really weird, what are some of the steps you go through to identify what it is and the severity of the situation?
Well, I know the first thing that we would do would be to try to replicate what's going on. If there's a door opening, we'll spend time with that door seeing if we can make it open. If there's a faucet turning on, we'll see if there's animals around that might be turning it on. We found a cat that was turning a faucet on.
Okay.
Stuff like that happens.
Right.
A lot of this stuff we can just rule out, but it's the stuff that's left over that's interesting.
Right.
And that's when we try to determine what it is.
Right, and why it might be happening.
Yeah.
Is that like done on a history basis? Do you go back through then and research the location?
Yes.
Or
yeah, we try to do that before going.
Okay.
Just so we have some idea. A lot of times with some of the stories around this area, especially like at the college, there's a lot. They're all urban legends. They don't even have basis in fact.
Right.
So it's nice to know things like that when you're going in.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I would say a good deal of a lot of paranormal investigation is research. Be it either the evidence that we've gathered or just the history of a place. And like he says, the urban legends that are behind it. We got to debunk all that stuff first before we get into there. And even though we are investigators, we go in there with the frame of mind of, I hate to say non-believers. We want to keep a positive atmosphere, but at the same token, we want to see whether or not there's something that can explain it.
Right. Well, and it almost seems like being a skeptic is one of your more powerful tools, because then you're digging deeper, trying to figure out, what it is.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask you some questions, because you had said they call you in for more of, you know, the decision making on what it is and where they need to go. So when you walk into a situation, Beth, what are some of the things that you sense, you feel? Like, how do you determine?
Honestly, I don't even go. He will send me the interview and I do it right. I don't even go. They are basically focusing on the demonic, and that's not something that I want to bring to me personally, with that group. I do it from my home, and I'm able to get into that energy and zero in and tell them what it is, as far as that part of what I do. In my general day-to-day readings with my clients, it is always Aunt Sarah that comes through, or their mother. It's a spirit, an energy of a passed over loved one, which is normally what I deal with on a day-to-day basis. I will get the consultations from the group maybe once a month or so. Right now, obviously, it seems to be a lot more because this season, I guess. But I don't go. I've had a couple incidents where I have consulted on a case with the group, and I've had a spirit in my house that was not anything that I want in my home or near my family. So, you know, I distance myself as much as I can.
And when something like that happens, then you have to go through a process to rid yourself of said spirit, right?
Pray.
Just to make sure.
Well, you know, it came, it did not stay. It basically made itself known to me, its presence, kind of like, here I am, this is what you're talking about. And then it just, you know, it went back to wherever it came from.
So, I mean, doing it from your house then doesn't necessarily
It's not going to protect me, probably not, but I would probably run screaming down the hall and out the driveway if I went in the house. So that's what I would be afraid of.
And so, if you can, tell us, like, what are some of the feelings that you get when you start to look at a case?
If it is a demonic case that they are working on, I generally get lots of pics in my head. It gets very tight. I get very nauseous, and I can see it. I can describe it to them. They normally don't see it. I don't know if you guys, when you go, do you ever see what you're dealing with, or is it more of a feeling? I can describe, okay, this thing is huge, and it's dark, and I see horns, and I'm glad I'm not going there. So, and I let them know this is the level you're working with. But there's also times where it feels more like something that they've welcomed in, which I don't know if you guys deal with that probably a lot. The client has delved in somewhere where they shouldn't go and asking for things to come through. And you can get all sorts of lower entities, and that's when they usually call groups in.
We have a call, actually, or a question, I should say. Melissa in East Lansing is asking, what are some of the dangers involved in a spirit, and can a spirit or a demon, can they cause you physical harm?
Yeah, I think that's a great question to go off with what Beth was saying. There's a certain type of protocol that at least I do, and I recommend it to other groups too. It's just kind of like a protection thing, whether it's a prayer or a ritual, something to do that to protect yourself. But yeah, when you get involved with a family, at least in the cases that I've dealt with severe stuff, and I refer to them as demonic stuff, and you were asking for characteristics and things like that. Usually I'll go through like a list and be like, all right, this is what it sounds like. It does sound like it's an inhuman spirit, and kind of go through this checklist. But I've actually had entities with these demonic features visit me at my home before a house blessing, and I think it was kind of trying to scare me off, you know, like, don't help this family. Because when we were talking about kind of malevolent type stuff, they really don't want the family to get help. It's kind of like their energy source. They have terrible goals to like break down the families, like finances, health, relationships, happiness, you know, encourage you with any like substance abuse or alcoholism, things like that. And they're really essentially bullies. And so it's a lot about these families standing up for themselves and kind of reclaiming their life, their home, and stuff like that. And so a lot of what I do too is counseling with the family to really figure out what you know, kind of drew the entity in. But yeah, there's been physical incidents where people have been scratched, burned. You know, we had a client that was thrown across the room, and this is not common, like what Mike was saying. It's very rare. A lot of the cases that I deal with on this low of a level, the lowest of low. So with the really nasty, what I refer to as the evil things. But with human spirits, they still have been able to interact. You know, things have been thrown at someone. You know, someone gets pushed or shoved, or someone gets, you know, the covers pulled off them in the night and stuff like that. So there is physical interaction. And I'm sure there's been plenty of human spirit cases where people maybe have been harmed. I mean, you got to think about, you know, every day in our daily existence of life, you know, you're going to meet like really nice people and you're going to meet some like nasty people.
Right.
So it's kind of like that on the spiritual realm too. You know, you've got a different variety of spirits and personalities and things like that. So you're going to get different behaviors as well.
So it can happen, but it's not the norm necessarily.
Most of the time, it's just they want, like I said, they want to let you know they're there. When you do get like she said, the meanies, especially when we come in into play and everything, it is interesting because like she says, they'll come to your home, they'll follow you afterwards. You know, like a previous case that we've had, I have almost all the way through my recordings, I had this thing cussing me out, threatening me, all kinds of stuff because I was challenging it. Growling, that's one of my personal favorites. You know, just anything. It's basically, you know, it's like an animal. It just basically doesn't want to be messed with, and it knows that you're a threat to it because you can force it out.
And it never occurs to you, because I'm a little scared already just hearing the stories. Like, it doesn't ever occur to you that, hey, you know, as you said, if you're inviting this sort of thing or you're chasing or following this sort of thing, do you never get worrisome that eventually that's going to come against you?
Well, there is that possibility. There's things we can do, rituals, prayer, you know, amulets, and you know, the bottom line for the majority of the things, which I always tell the client, is they said, you know, you got to stand up against it, and it's about faith. It doesn't mean you have to have necessarily faith in God. You just got to have faith, and when you have faith in what you're doing, that's your biggest tool. Because if you're scared of it, that's what they want. They want to terrorize you, and the more they scare you, the more they have control over you.
Right.
And they make you do things.
Because they feed off negative energy.
Yeah.
A lot of the cases I deal with, there's sexual abuse, there's alcoholism, substance abuse, depression, anxiety, chronic illness actually, or there's like meddling with the dark arts and things like that too,
Right.
which I'm trying to, don't do that, you know?
Right, that's probably not a good thing.
Yeah, I had a guy write me the other week, was like, I summoned a demon and, you know, I invited it in, and I'm like, you know, and you have to get past the point, like, why would you do that? But being like, okay, here's what you can do to help yourself, you know, and
Right.
everybody has a chance at redemption here, you know, and just to get rid of them. But yeah, it's definitely something not fun to deal with. So yeah, you do get scared, you know. I would lie if I said that, oh, I don't get scared, you know, because I do, but I just, I like channel this mama bear energy where I'm mad for this family because, like, you know, their 13-year-old daughter's being assaulted by something. That makes me super angry. So
Right.
I just want to help them and protect them and kind of like rally them together. I kind of get them pumped up to be like, we're going to, you know, get rid of this thing. And I involve them a lot actually in the process.
So you're the little lady in the poltergeist.
Right.
Okay.
Yep,
You're
5'3",
go into the
so
light.
yep.
Okay, I
Yep,
gotcha.
that's awesome.
Chris, once you have determined that there's nothing animalistic, no animals, raccoons are in there turning water on, whatever, what are some of the rituals that you would go through to cleanse a home or to bless a home?
That's not really something I would do.
Oh, okay.
I would if I was asked, but it's not something I would typically do.
Okay.
I'm an ordained minister, so I've got access to different things like that I can do if the client requests it, but it's
Right.
not something I would normally do.
So you're more into the identifying of what the issue is.
Yeah, we would just want to figure out what's going on and try to help them understand it. Like I said, in most cases, probably 95%, there's a natural explanation for what's going on.
Right.
And it can be any number of things. We had people that were seeing shadows at night. They lived across the street from an emergency room. It was the lights going in and out all night long. Yeah.
You probably get a lot of those where you're just like, come on, really?
Well, people get scared, and it actually takes a lot for them to contact us.
Right.
So
They've
we hear them out.
Right, exactly.
And most of the time, our clients, or at least our clients, are usually want to keep it private, you know. Keep it, you know, they don't want people to know what's going on.
Right.
The ones that antagonize things usually are the ones that are kind of, they're pushing it. And, you know, I brought a Ouija board in and I played with it, and we tell you, well, don't do that, and they do it again, and it's like you're making it worse.
Right.
But like you said, you try to debunk everything you can with it, and then if there is something, generally, you know. I lost my thought on that one. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
That's preventable.
Yeah,
or
right.
just don't do that.
Yeah, right. But usually for our group, we can do cleansings, and we usually suggest it just to calm the environment after we've after we've been in there and been riling things up. But if there is something severe, that's when we call someone like her in or like her in that will help us out with figuring this out, or a minister. So that way it's out of our hands at that point.
Right. Kara, talk to us a little bit about Greystone I'm sorry.
You're fine.
And what you do. You go in and do sort of similar ideas, find out what it is, assess it, and do you cleanse then after that, or do you just identify and then someone else comes in?
It really depends on the situation. We don't particularly cleanse the house. If the client wants us to, we'll make a referral to somebody that specializes in that area. But usually how it works is a client will request our services. We'll do an interview with them over the phone, kind of get to understand what they're actually experiencing, how it's affecting their family, things like that. At that point, we set up a game plan to figure out, well, if they're having activity in the bedroom, maybe we want to have most of our cameras in the bedroom, or if they're having EMF is a popular item on TV shows that can cause different side effects. So we kind of watch out for that. If we hear the red flags that some of those side effects are being caused, we'll bring in someone that specializes in EMF who can kind of take care of that issue.
Can you say what EMF is? Because
Oh, yes.
Yeah, because I'm sure most people don't know what that is.
It's electromagnetic fields.
Okay.
Mostly it's man-made, caused by electricity, things like that. You'll see all the little cool gadgets that all the ghost hunting shows hold on to, and if you go by alarm clocks, that's going to set off an EMF detector a lot.
Okay.
Normal amounts are completely fine. If it's higher, it can cause side effects like nausea. Sometimes it can make you paranoid, things like that. We actually went on a case in central Michigan where as soon as we walked in, you could tell that they just had old wiring that had a lot of EMF, and almost everything they were describing was textbook side effects of EMF.
Okay.
So that we kind of look for those issues and figure out natural ways they can fix them.
So there's a reason that we should follow the code when we're putting wiring in our house.
Oh, yes.
Okay, good. Because sometimes I think there's no reason that we have to be doing all this weird stuff.
You'd be surprised how much, what you said with EMF, how much electricity you get off. So even with new electricity, how much it gets off. And there's other things too, such as carbon monoxide, not getting that into the house. And like you said, we bring in equipment that picks that up. So that way we can others tell whether or not it's man-made or it's not man-made. So.
Right. Yeah, so you really got to figure out what's actually happening and then go from there on how you treat it, whether that be, I think you just have a spirit that's really just wants, to be a part of the family, and if you don't want them, just tell them, don't bother my kids, or just let them know how you're feeling. If it's a demon, then you got to do something totally different.
Right.
There's no one trick pony in this.
So theoretically, you could have a spirit and you could just leave cookies out for it and be nice, and like it could be a family pet.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's good to know. Do any of you have ever had any issues with animals in a spiritual sense? Do animals ever come back and cause issues?
Oh yeah.
Like I was tied up in the sun, you didn't give me water, now I'm going to make your life miserable.
With our cases, most common one I usually get is ghost cats.
Ghost cats.
Yeah, for some reason cats love to come back.
They're not annoying enough in life.
Yeah, they come back.
Come back and get you. Okay. That's interesting.
People will complain about, they'll be laying in the bed and they'll feel something jump up on bed with them, and they don't have pets, and they'll see a cat walk into a room and then it's not there, and that's the most common one that I've experienced. I don't know any other.
Definitely cats.
Cats.
Dogs,
interesting.
too.
Yeah. Okay. Very interesting. How do dreams, when you're dreaming, do dreams ever cross into this realm as well? I know some of you said you've had dreams that have been either premonitory or help you solve something. How does that work exactly?
Well, in terms of the cases and paranormal investigations and house blessings and stuff, it's almost been for like every single one that I've done now where I will actually have either physically see it in the house or something will try to come scare me off, or I've actually had these dreams where like in the ether or whatever, you're battling this thing, and like I'll actually wake up in the middle of the night, you know, and I can feel it in the room, but I've also like interacted with it in a dream. And so usually it'll happen right before the person contacts me. Like the next day they'll be like, hey, I'm going through this and this, and they'll describe things, and I'll experience it in my dream as well. And so it's kind of like a verification for me, like, okay, you know, this probably is a real case. It's not just mental illness, you know. And out of all the cases, I've only actually had a few that actually involved mental illness as well. But yeah, so I'll actually have like premonitions. I'll interact with it when I'm in my sleep. And I've had some weird stuff too. Like we used to inquire back in the day. We learned a couple songs with Latin in it, but I've actually had dreams where there's being Latin like spoken, things I don't even identify until looking it up later. And so, and that's not always, you're not always going to experience that with demonic cases, not always like arcane ancient languages like that as well. But just weird things like that that I've had in my sleep that just kind of confirm like, yes, I am, you know, interacting with this thing. This is a real entity. And then also with premonitions as well too, kind of helps me with cases as well too. And I'm sure Beth's had interesting dreams and stuff too, I think.
Right, mine is more based on passed over loved ones, so I don't get the demons in it. Like a lot of my clients will say, well, I dreamed of my husband and he really felt like he was there and he's been gone for so long, but he told me this, or is that, do you think that was a connection? To me, you know, there's just this certain feeling you have, you know, you just know that they actually were there with you and you can feel them and hear them speaking. It's amazing because they are passed on. Right. I've never had the demons come in my sleep, and I hope I don't. Yeah. Do some extra praying.
You're living the high life as far as that goes.
Not for long. I'm afraid right now.
You kind of go back to what the first question you asked, which kind of ties in with this. That's kind of what my experience is I've actually had dead relatives visit me in my sleep. I woke up to them being there, kind of like just fading out type of thing. And that's kind of the reason why I got into it, was because of the fact I had that constantly happening with me throughout my life.
Now, are these relatives you were close with, or
some close,
distant?
some not even that close. One example I can give you is this happened well several years, about 6 or 7 years ago. My wife's grandmother passed away, and the morning that she passed away, I woke up and saw someone sitting at the end of the bed. Startled the crap out of me because I thought it was my wife. And I looked over and realized she was laying next to me, and she woke up and I was like, no, just go to sleep, it's okay. So the next day when we both woke up to go to work, I just looked at her and said, you're going to be getting a call from your parents. Your grandmother passed away last night. And sure enough, as soon as she got on the road to go to work, she got that call.
What? Weird. That's super cool.
Yeah, that's happened to me numerous times. That's why I got into it, because I was like, okay, why is this happening?
Right.
And what?
I'd like to remind everybody this is a call-in show. If you'd like to be a part of our panel, or ask our panel, excuse me, you're welcome to do that, 349-1232. We do have a call in. We have Jen from East Lansing on the line. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Well, thank you for the call in. What's your question?
I've noticed that my dog sometimes stares weirdly in corners of the room. Do animals have the ability to detect presence that we do not?
Okay, great question. The question is, do animals have a better capability at detecting these sorts of things than we do?
They're actually the best detector you can use.
Really?
A lot of times they can sense it before you do. It's like the same thing like when someone's about to have a heart attack and your dog knows. They have an extra sensory to that. And staring at something in a corner, that might be a sign of something happening. Then again, it just might be a spider in the corner that they're seeing, you know. Animals are kind of weird, but if you notice that they're barking at something that's not there and they're constantly agitated, their hair's on end, those are usually signs there's something going on.
Okay, or too much catnip maybe.
Exactly.
Something like that. I gotcha. Are there certain places in the world that are known for more hauntings than other places?
New Orleans.
New Orleans?
Yeah.
Okay. Would you all agree that's like a #1 spot around in the United States, or?
Yeah. Maine.
Old churches too?
Any place really old. The older it is, the more likely it is that there's going to be more stories.
Yeah, Mike was saying too with residual hauntings where it's kind of like a recording playing over and over again. Gettysburg has a lot of, you know, everyone's like, oh yeah, Gettysburg, yeah, because it's just so haunted. Like we were there for like 15 minutes or something like that because we had to get back to DC for dinner one night, and the amount of EVPs were astounding. We heard like gunshots, we heard a southern accent. This guy, you can hear him in the recording, he's like, what kind are you guys? And we're like, what? Like, and it was amazing just listening to that stuff. So there's definitely certain locations, and you could even go into further depth with this. We want to talk about ley lines, L-E-Y, like energy lines that cross the earth and stuff like that. I was very fortunate enough to go to Machu Picchu in Peru, and there's a lot of energy activity there. People report a lot of spiritual sightings, you know, just different places around the world that have a lot of activity, and or whether there's just been a significant either traumatic event or just something where there is a lot of death there or a lot of activity. It's most commonly to have a lot of hauntings there and spiritual activity. So.
Do you have a hard time finding roommates?
Yeah, right now, yeah, they're like, this is that weird like, girl. So.
Just go back to bed. I'm going to deal with the spirit really quick.
Yeah, I've noticed. Yeah,
my wife doesn't even like it.
Right. How does that work? Yeah, I mean, is she interested at all, or she just does no part of it?
No, she doesn't like it. Every now and then she might listen to an EVP, but she stays completely out of it. She says, I don't want to hear anything. I want you to bring it home. If you do, you're sleeping on the couch.
Okay.
So,
well.
My husband is pretty supportive, but he was always a big skeptic. And it was a few years ago, and I kept telling him I felt a spirit in the house, and he's like, yeah, whatever. You know, he doesn't hear anything. We had just moved into this house, and one morning we were laying in bed, and we could hear all the cupboards in our kitchen slamming and slamming, and they're glass. And you could hear it, and it sounded like somebody's pounding on the table, and I'm like, really? He's like, what is that? And he wouldn't go check.
He's like, you go out there.
Yeah, he wouldn't go check. So, you know, I did, and it was actually the previous owner's father who helped him build the house. And he was very angry that we were there because he did not know who we were. He did not know where his son was. Why are we in there? So I just told him, I said, you know, he doesn't live here anymore, and we're sorry. And I gave him his address, and we haven't seen him since. So, I mean, he was, but he was not happy.
Yeah.
He's a little Italian man. He was very angry at us for being in there. Yes, he's like, get out of my house.
Leave. We got about 20 minutes left, so I did want to jump into a little bit of the equipment that you brought in, because everybody likes show and tell. So maybe you can kind of just walk us through some of the, you know, the big parts of the equipment and what it's designed for, because there's a lot of stuff down there.
Turn around this way so the audience can see it. Make it easier.
I don't know how low we'll be able to get a shot of it.
But, if you can't get it,
you know, we can get something a little.
Well,
bit
we can
here,
pass it around. And,
get my feet out of the
we
way.
all played with these different things, so we can all explain a toy or two. I don't think I need to explain.
All right.
So.
We'll just hold them while you explain.
Right.
There we go. Everybody got a toy?
I think so.
Okay.
You can hold it.
I'll hold it.
Yeah,
all right, there we go.
I'll
Beautiful
display
display.
it.
like the hand
I don't
models.
know what that is because you helped me,
It's so
Chris.
polished.
That, what she
Okay.
has in her hands there is an EMF detector. That's what we were talking about, and as you can tell, it's got noise on it. You can get those online. They're real cheap to get.
Yeah, these are
Okay.
the least expensive. Don't do this because it's got a meter, so if you do this, you're going to get different readings.
All right, and
Go
that is
figure.
measuring electromagnetic fields.
Correct.
Okay, very cool.
See, she's just got a simple thing. If you want to get into it, this it's a flip phone or flip camera. It's digital.
Okay.
It doesn't have a Nair on it, so you can't see in night vision. But it's good to use if you just want to try to capture something simple. It's portable, you know.
So there isn't anything more specific about that camera
No,
for
it's
this?
just a standard camera.
Okay.
Just a
All right.
camera.
Gotcha.
What'd you get?
K2 meter. It's also an EMF detector.
Chris, I'm sorry.
It's a K2 meter.
K2 meter. Okay.
Yeah, it's another EMF detector. It lights up. It's also very popular in TV shows.
Okay.
It's also incredibly easy to manipulate.
Okay.
Cell phones will make it go off.
Two talkwave radios.
Yeah, almost anything will make these go off. It's also got a push button that you have to hold down, or you can jam a coin into it to make it stay on.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
But
Nobody's
they're
come
still
up
interesting
with
to
the
have.
auto-on feature.
Well,
I should give you something a little more.
well, then
creative.
it's broken. You can build a switch into it, but then I wouldn't take any evidence from it because it was manipulated.
Ah, gotcha. Okay. Now, are these are not expensive parts?
Those, yeah, so far those aren't. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Got the good ones in there.
Yeah,
too.
well,
All right. Sam, you're next.
Yes. So I should have painted my nails, but I did not.
That's
so
okay.
I will hold this up. This is a
Now we're all
digital-
looking at your nails, by the way.
This is a digital laser thermometer. And if you're a dork like me, you can pretend like it's a cool gadget or gun. So.
Right.
But basically, it just takes measurements. And sometimes, in a lot of paranormal instances, there will be things called like cold spots, where you'll be in a room and all of a sudden it gets freezing cold, inexplicably so. Like
Okay.
it just gets very cold. And in theory, it's because energy is being drawn from either the energy in the room or electronics, and sometimes that's why they think the room gets colder. Sometimes there's hot spots as well too. Actually, with a lot of severe cases I deal with, a lot of people report really hot temperatures and stuff like that. So you just point it at somewhere in the room, and it'll give you a measurement. And you'll want to do base readings first to figure out what's normal for where you're at actually, and then if you notice some paranormal activity going on and you measure it and there's a cold spot, and it can be used as evidence. So I think that's cool.
That is a room temperature measure. You could take your own temperature with it?
Yeah, exactly. Well, people use this in the automotive business as well too.
Oh.
So So.
Okay. Those are fairly cheap too, around $30.
$30,
depending on where you shop at or wherever. The only thing I remember is if you ever use one of those, not to be pointing it towards a window, because like a window pane will be cold and it'll pick that up, and things like that. You just got to kind of watch out for that.
Okay.
Then we have other stuff here. Now these are some of the other things. Now this is I like this little thing. This is one of our newer toys. It is a spirit box. It's really tiny. It's basically a radio that here. See if I can get it to go. Do this in reverse here. Power. Let's see, where's the power button? There it is. Honestly, I do operate this stuff for you.
Okay. I was like, yeah, we're not getting sold now.
Okay, so sweep forward. And then what it does is it flashes through radio stations at a pace. You can speed it up or slow it down, and then you ask questions, and as you ask questions, it enables the entity to communicate with you by stopping at words. It sometimes works, it sometimes doesn't work. There's a lot of controversy behind it.
Yeah.
All right, so it'll stop on specific words on specific stations to make a sentence so that you understand it.
Yeah, or one-word answers, yes, like if you answer. And it does, there's controversy whether or not it's legit, but I can
imagine why that might be.
I found it worked in some cases.
Okay.
There was one case that we did, we got an answer that the entity's name was Dave. When we did the research on the place, we found out that the person that lived there previously was Dave, and that he had died of a heart attack, and that was the information we got off of the spirit box.
Interesting.
And then when we did the research, we found out that was actually true.
Okay, and what does a spirit box set you back?
This beauty cost me about $60.
Okay, $60.
So that's not too bad.
All right.
And then we have audio recorder, which is a ghost hunter's favorite toy.
Okay.
This is where we get most of our evidence, right here.
This is when you're having a conversation and somebody else is talking, but that's the only thing hearing it.
Yeah, for some reason the ear won't hear it, but the recorders will. And then you just go back and listen to it. Sometimes you might have to clear it up, try not to tamper with it too much. We usually just try to take the static out, and then you'll have all kinds of voices and stuff in the background.
Okay.
Answering questions or just saying random things.
Okay, and you do that on a computer program. You upload it.
Yeah, we have software that we can use to do that.
Okay, very cool.
Now this is, our recorder ranges anywhere around $30 to like $100 depending on how fancy you want to get with it.
Okay.
Now this guy here is one of the cool toys.
All right.
And I know it's tiny, but this is actually I know it looks like a camera, but this is actually a full spectrum camera. It takes film in different spectrums of light.
Okay.
So if there's something there that's in a different spectrum, we could actually see it, like shadow men or just something passing by. And this is what we use to record with that.
Okay, and so what spectrum then are entities in? I mean, in other words...
Well, they can be in different spectrums, that's the thing. They can be in like a blue spectrum, or they can be like in a red spectrum. So it's kind of, this takes the full array of it. Okay. And then basically you can actually see it. Most of the time you'll see like shadow, like a shadow figure or something, and you'll see it moving across the screen or something. Okay. However, in paranormal investigations, I would say maybe about 95% of the time, you won't get much video. Okay. Which is good that it's a digital and you just wipe back over it and re-record. That's the thing, is that for paranormal investigators, that is like the holy grail, to get something on video or on camera. It is very rare and very hard to catch something. Right. Especially like a full entity or something like that. We might get some mists or something like that. So it's like fishing in a puddle. Yeah, basically. All right. Not a lot to catch. I gotcha. All right. And then we got this guy here, which is part of a set. I didn't bring the whole thing, but basically this is just a little mini IR camera. Okay. Hook it up to a DVR system. You can get bigger systems. This one is just a smaller version. This is part of my portable set. Okay. And this actually sees in night vision, so we can actually see in the dark with this. Okay. And usually there's someone at a station, and you've probably seen it on shows where they sit at a station looking through the cameras, and then they got these cameras set up throughout the house and everything, and they're all wired. And that's part of the equipment. Now, another big piece of equipment that I can bring in is thermal. What's it called? A thermal imaging camera. Those are expensive. Those are probably the most expensive piece of equipment out there.
Thousands of dollars.
The cheapest one's like $1,500.
Yeah, 10 or 12,000
yeah,
usually.
yeah. And I think every paranormal investigation group wants one, but can't afford one.
Yeah.
Right.
So this is all coming out of pocket.
So if anybody wants to donate an infrared camera, any of these people are willing. They're willing to accept it. Okay.
Yeah.
And so that what captures infrared.
It actually captures thermal. It captures heat signatures.
So like in the movies, we see that like a person running, it's a little green blob.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So there is a definite correlation between heat and an entity.
Well, it's not necessarily
energy.
heat, it's changes in temperature.
Yeah.
It does cold and hot, and it's in different colors.
Firefighters use them a lot to try to figure out where the fire is coming from.
Okay.
So.
Okay. So it's a grading scale then of temperature.
So like that cold spot that you feel or see, and like you gauge. If we had that thermal camera, we might actually see that the cold spot might be a person. Or something, or it might be, you know, a cat, or just something that's just sitting in the middle of the room. That's what the thermal camera does.
That's insane. $12,000 for a camera.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe if you have all this equipment, and obviously you go out and you do this, what are some of your finest catches? What's your best one that you're most proud of?
As far as investigation?
As far as, having caught something on either video or camera.
For me, actually, there's been so many things that has happened, and I don't know if the rest of you guys have had this, but I've been finding that it's been increasing. I know the Halloween season's around the corner, but I've been finding that actual stuff has been increasing lately. Just recently, we had an investigation which actually was a demon case where the client had a demon situation. And my finest catch was, I think, the audio I got off of that. The fact that it was talking back to me, it was cursing at me. It was growling. It sounded like a stampede of horses above us on the second floor. I mean, it was just all this stuff, and we caught it all. That was the beauty of it. Because a lot of times you might not get it. You might hear it, but you don't get it on recording.
Right, and that was around here?
It was, I'll say it's local, but
okay,
but
good enough. I don't want to know where. Beth, when you're working with one of your clients, do you have to get the client in a specific sort of place? In other words, do you do calming exercises, or can you just sit down anywhere with somebody and give a read?
Before I do a reading, I ask them to, definitely be open to the reading. They have to open themselves up and be prepared to receive messages. And I cover everything from your job, your love life. It's not strictly just spirit contact. I do all sorts of messages. The spirit contact is not every single reading I do. I would say maybe 75%. Some people don't want that. Some people strictly want to know their future or where they're at. Other people are really looking for that connection. I actually did one the other day, and the lady's like, no, my grandma passed over. Is she, do you see her? And I'm like, well, I see this woman, and well, I don't think it's your grandma. It was her deceased ex-mother-in-law that came through. But she was coming through very kind and saying she was very sorry, and she wanted to make this connection to say I was wrong about you. And the woman was blown away. It wasn't who she thought she was going to talk to, but that's who came through.
Right.
So it's just, you just have to be really ready for anything, open to just about anything.
And do you use cards, or do you?
I don't use anything.
Okay.
I meditate before a reading. I do a lot of prayer, and then I just go with what I receive message-wise. I see, not see, but with my third eye, I see, and I hear things, and then I just pass it on to my clients. So. Okay. Yeah.
We're just under 10 minutes. Obviously, being involved in something like this, you probably have some work cut out as far as convincing people that this is actually real. And so, how do you deal with skepticism? Like, what is your best approach on saying, listen, I understand that this seems strange, but here's this. Does that help? What do you say to somebody who's like, come on?
I think it's a great tool. I mean, they might pick up on something, a natural explanation that I never even thought of because I was so caught on it being paranormal. So someone might say, we hear a growl in the background. They're like, oh, it's a coyote. It's mating season now, and where I didn't know that. So they might come up with an explanation that maybe I wasn't able to come up with because I was so focused on it being paranormal. So it's a great tool. I always listen to it. You just have to have an open dialogue with it. You don't ever try to convince them, just try to show them the scientific results that you've gotten and see what you guys come up with.
Very cool. If someone was interested in getting involved or following in your path or becoming a hunter or a solver of problems, how would they go about doing that? Is this something that's trainable? I mean, obviously, some of you have things that are happening that I'm sure never happened to me. I can't even remember what I had for breakfast. So, but is there a way to develop that, or what would that process be like?
There's multiple ways you can do it. If you're a person that hasn't really had many experiences or just curious, get into it. I would suggest trying to find a group, a local group, and maybe shadow them and see if it's something you want to get into. Because before you start investing in stuff and in time, it's best to find out, whether or not it's for you, whether or not you're going to be the person that's going to run and scream, or the person that's going to be going, oh, what's that? As far as spirituality, if you feel that you have that ability, find a spiritualist or somebody that can guide you. Like she said, she had a mentor. I think that would be the best avenue to go with that. If you do get into it, start off small. We always recommend our new members, if you're going to get anything, start out with just a thermometer, with just a handy cam. I mean, that's the basics for ghost hunting. It's just taking pictures, and then work your way up. The more involved you get, the bigger the toys get,
right, of course.
And the more you get into it. So before you start getting into it, just start off with a couple smaller items and see how it goes. Because there is a lot of time for all of us. It's a hobby. It's not really a job. So there's a lot of time involved in listening to the evidence or watching the evidence and doing the investigations. So there's time involved with it.
What would you say to people, because there are obviously a lot of very religious people, and I know that within religion that this is just completely the opposite, and not, come on, and it's either a God-sponsored thing or nothing. How do you have a good way of branching religion with this kind of activity?
Yeah. Well, one of the things, at least in terms of getting into this stuff, I took it upon myself kind of as like a goal, and I thought it was important to do, study multiple different religions and cultures. And say it's like a mainstream like Catholic or Christian type view, an Abrahamic type thing. Actually, if they go by the Bible and stuff, there is a lot of talk of demons and spirits, and that there actually is a difference. And I know a lot of people might get the perception that we're going in somewhere to stir up things. It's rather that we're going in to help people. And when you talked about going in into this field of work, I think that should be your intentions, or to help people. That should be your motivation. But yeah, there's different, in almost every single religion and culture, there's something about the paranormal, the spiritual. And I think even here in America, it's like 73% of Americans actually believe in the paranormal, have had paranormal experiences, things they can't explain. Right. And I think it's important. I think protect yourself, and in regards to religion and stuff like that too, there is talk about this. If people look, it's interesting when people will follow a certain line of thought, but then if you apply it to the entire thing that's been discussed in the Bible or the Quran or different religious texts, there is discussion of spirits and demons and things like that too. So they really do the research, read the whole thing, kind of do a whole background on it. There is evidence if that's what they believe in. It's also discussed in those texts as well. So I think it's very interesting. But yeah, and it seems scary and stuff like that. In my line of work, with dealing with the really negative and dark things, I really do see and have experienced a difference between human spirits and these inhuman things. I know there's a line of belief that, if you're dealing with any kind of spirit, it's a demon. And I really, I totally appreciate someone's view like that. And then, but it's just like I've noticed different characteristics, different behaviors. And I've seen a lot of loving and healing things like what Beth does. Beth is a beautiful gift. And I think that's a wonderful thing to celebrate, that you can heal people and things like that. And it's not always evil and negative and bad in the paranormal. And just to tie in everything too with the call, everybody has an ability, to be honest. It's in a lot of Western cultures or industrialized cultures here that we tend to tune things out. Even as a child, like they'll be like, it's just a nightmare, go back to bed. But with animals and children, because they haven't been cultured and kind of molded into that line of thought, they're more able to experience things as well, but we can open up if we choose to.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, just in talking, I was with some friends, and I was talking about cards, specifically reading cards, and the comment was, well, that's demonic, you know, and that goes against what the Bible. And I was like, I didn't read anything about that. So I mean, it seems like that was a first jump to, well, that, you know, stay away from that. That goes against what everything is. So I just find that, you know, along with the skepticism, there's just always that person that's going to just, you know, take it to the bad place. Like, come on, you know.
So with Beth's gift, and I'll be quiet, but like in Corinthians, for example, it talks about the gift of spirit, the gift of discernment, which means there's a difference between entities. To me, that proves that yes, there are different things than human spirits and demons. Like the gift of differentiation and discernment, the gift of tongues. It talks about this, spirits from whatever divine being you want to believe in. They're gifts from God, Great Spirit, Allah, whatever you want to refer to it as. And I think that's things we shouldn't demonize that. And it helps a lot of people. So I think it's a great thing. So
well, and we got just a couple of minutes left, but I do appreciate that you said that 78% or whatever are starting. You know, and it really has been a giant birth of this whole thing. And you know, obviously cameras are getting so small and so good and cheaper. Some of them, you know, is allowing people to catch these sorts of things. So it really is making its debut. So I think there's only more good things to catch. I'm going to go through and just to kind of go back through your names, what you're associated with, and contact information. If any of the viewers want to find out or get involved a little bit more, these would be the places to do it. Right here we've got Michael Lopez. He is with Paranormal Investigations of Michigan. Next to him, Samantha Harris. She's author and demonologist. And I'm assuming all of you have Facebook pages, because even people who live under a rock have a Facebook page these days. And then to her right again, Chris Hildenbrand. He is the founder and lead investigator of Lansing Paranormal. And Beth Shelby, she is a psychic intuitive. I'm seeing Facebook pages here for everybody. And then finally, we've got Kara Swanson. She is the West Chapter Director of Grimstone Incorporated. And I thank you all very, very much for being here. An hour just almost didn't seem like enough. But happy Halloween to all of our viewers. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. Have a good night.